Hello visitors, how are you? Today I am going to explain my bloody Valentine. So the film starts with a piece of news. It was about a fire that broke out at a coal mine. And it has happened because of Tom's mistake. He was the mine's owner's son. 6 people were stuck within the mine due to the fire. But one of the men with the strange behavior kills the other 5 people. Maybe to eat the available food there alone. And to avoid the deficiency of oxygen. It means if the others will stay alive there will be a deficiency of oxygen. Till the rescue team arrives there, the last man there also gets faint. His condition was worst. When he was taken to the hospital, we come to know that he was in a coma. In the further story, we will call this man a murderer, because he has done 5 murders. After a long time, that man doesn't come to his senses. The hospital staff was also hopeless. Suddenly, after a year, that man comes to his senses. He was lost in his own thinking. Like, now I am in my senses and all people also knew that I have killed others. The police will arrest me instantly. So in this fear, he kills the staff members and escapes from there. This murderer takes many lives here. The police also arrive there. The police understand that why murderer ran. Now the police will not spare him. Well, the scene cuts and we see that coal mine. Tom and his friends were there for enjoyment. Tom's female friend was also there. There was Axel and his friend and the others. Tom asks his friends to go inside the mine and he will take some snacks from outside. Those were in his car. As Tom's friend goes inside, someone makes her scared. When she turns and sees there was a man with a mask. That was her friend. The girl genuinely gets scared when someone takes her eye out, while hitting something from her back to her head. What do you think was that man? Yes, that murderer who ran from the hospital. Now he was chasing Tom's friends. He was looking aggressive and kills their friend. They all were scared. Tom's friend, Axel, and Axel's friend hide at a place, so that the murderer couldn't find them. After some time, getting a chance, they try to run from there. But unluckily, that murderer sees them. He moves forward to attack them. A brave girl comes in front to save them, to kill that murderer. But how would she know that she will be killed? The people left start running from there. Tom also comes there and he understands that there is danger. He moves towards the car with his companions. They arrive near the car, but the murderer also comes behind them. He was having an axe in his hand from which he attacks Tom and makes him injured. Then he drags him and none helps him. Axel was scared, so he goes from there with his 2 friends. Seeing it, Tom feels bad that Axel didn't help him. Even he goes far from him while taking the car. Tom gets scared. He starts running inside the mine. The murderer also comes behind him, but before he kills him the police arrive there. The police were searching for that murderer. They start firing on him. Getting sacred, the murderer runs from there and the scene ends here. Now we say the time after 10 years. Tom's friend, Axel, left him and ran. We see him successful. He was now a town sheriff. The most unexpected thing is that he was now married to Tom's friend whom Tom liked. It means Tom's friend is now Axel's wife. They also have a son. But Axel wasn't a good husband. He was cheating on his wife. There was a worker at their store and they also meet. One day, on Valentine's Day, that worker asks Axel to marry her. But Axel doesn't reply to her. Then the scene shifts to Tom, who comes to this city after 10 years. We are not told that where was he in these 10 years. But we know that his father was no more now. There was no caretaker of the coal mine. Tom comes here to sell that coal mine. A man was against Tom about this thing. He says to him that you will never sell this mine because we get a lot from it. The system of the city will be ruined if you sell this mine. Tom couldn't understand anything and he goes to a hotel. He spends the night there. From this, we come to know that Tom is not resident in this city. He was come from anywhere else. There was Axel's friend in the same hotel. We are shown 10 years before with Axel. She was in Tom's group. Meanwhile, a truck driver starts irritating her there. Then he goes outside. That girl goes behind him while taking a gun. The truck driver was still irritating her and wasn't listening to her. He opens the door of his truck and was about to move from there. But before he drives the truck, as he opens the door of his truck, a masked man comes out. He is the murderer who has appeared again after 10 years. He stabs a rod in the head of the truck driver. Due to it, the truck driver dies there. It means if you do bad, you will have bad. Seeing it, the girl who was Axel's friend gets scared and instantly runs inside the hotel. The murderer was chasing her. Being scared, the girl hides under her bed when the murderer was chasing her. Meanwhile, he sees the owner of the hotel and kills her. Then he moves forward to the place. Where was the girl hiding under her bed? The murderer goes to the room of that girl. He drags her under the bed and kills her. You also think that this murderer, don't know, have done so many murders. And the police still didn't arrest him. Then we see the next morning, Tom comes out of the hotel and comes to a store. It was the store of Sarah. He sees her and asks her that, do you work here? Sarah tells him everything. She tells that, I think you are dead. But you are alive, and seeing you after 10 years I am feeling happy. I missed you. But with this, Tom sees her family photo that was hanging behind her. He says, you married Axel. And you also have a son. Sarah tells him that yes, I have an elder son. Tom becomes sad. He says that, I knew that Axel will make you his one day, because you. Tom didn't feel good after hearing it, so he comes out of the store after saying this. On another side, we see the police outside that hotel, and they were investigating them. Axel was also informed about it because he was the town sheriff there. He checks the CCTV footage there. Meanwhile, he was given a box and there was his friend's heart. The murderer killed her. After it, we see Tom, who goes inside a bar. In fact, there were the shareholders of his mine there in the bar. He comes here for discussion to sell his coal mine. There were some sheriffs also. They say to Tom that the murderer comes back after 10 years as well as you. He must be behind you. Why don't you leave from here? He is destroying everything and even killing people. They start fighting with him, but then a sheriff saves Tom. The sheriff saved him when Tom was stuck in the mine. Then we see Sarah, who tells her husband Axel on call that Tom came to meet me. Axel says that, are you mad? Why you meet him after 10 years from where he comes? Why you didn't tell me before? If he comes again, don't even go in front of him. Don't know why Axel is an enemy of Tom. Now during the investigation, when he sees Tom with the girl in the CCTV footage, he thinks maybe Tom is killing everyone. Maybe he wants to take revenge. How would he know that Tom wasn't involved in this? Then we see the scene where Tom again comes to Sarah. He asks her why is she going far from him? Sarah says that, I don't want to meet you. Because she was afraid of Axel, she said this. Don't worry, Tom replies, we're buddies, let's go for a walk together. They're now walking together and conversing. Sarah says to Tom, can I give you a suggestion? Tom says yes, why not? Sarah said, you're considering selling your coal mine, so why don't you just forget about it? You don't know how beneficial is this coal mine for people. Tom says to Sarah that, I also couldn't understand what to do. I can't take any decision. Here, they say goodbye to each other. Tom says that, I have to see some tasks of mine, so I will see you later with it. Tom goes to his coal mine. There he talks to some people. But when he goes inside the coal mine, the murderer comes and locks him in the coal mine. He locks this place. Tom was alone locked there, and on another side, a worker was working. The murderer kills that worker. Tom couldn't help that worker. After killing that worker, the murderer runs from there. So the police couldn't arrest him. When the other workers come there and see their worker dead, they come to know that it is done by that murderer. Now the people who were doubting Tom that he is the murderer, since he came, the murders are happening. Their doubt was clear because this time Tom was locked. They also rescue him. Tom was taken to the hospital. Sarah was also there. She was distributing something there. Sarah glimpses Tom. She asks him that what was he doing there? Tom says that the murderer has returned. You would know about this. He is killing everyone and we should also take care of ourselves. They were talking. Meanwhile, Axel arrives there. Axel says to Tom, are you feeling that everyone is thinking that you are murderer? Let me tell you why. A sheriff works with me and he himself buried that murderer. It means he is dead. And you think yourself that since you came here the people are dying. Why should not they suspect you? Tom says, what about yesterday? I was locked yesterday. Who killed that worker? Axel says that you may have many tricks. And if you still don't believe me, we will go to that place where we buried that murderer. Now Axel, Tom, and that sheriff who buried that murderer go to that place. When they dug that place, there wasn't any skeleton there. It means the murderer wasn't dead. He escaped from there. It is clear to everyone that Tom is not doing these murders. It's the murderer who is wandering freely. Tom says, whatever, I have to find out who is behind all this. And how is my coal mine is connected to all this? At night, he moves to his coal mine, and then he sees a light. He reaches a room while following that light. A sheriff was sitting inside the room. Actually, he was protecting that place. As he comes out to see that who is there, the murderer comes there. He kills him badly. The next morning, Axel comes there. He sees his dead body there. But the heart was missing from his dead body. He says that the danger is increasing gradually. I have to make security high. That's why he increases the security outside his house. On the other side, we see that Sarah was closing her store along with the worker. Meanwhile, the murderer comes there. He holds them and tries to kill those girls. But these girls get locked in a room, so that the murderer couldn't reach there. The murderer starts breaking the door. They get scared of him. There was a window there and the worker was escaping from there. But then the murderer somehow reaches there. He starts pulling that worker. Sarah becomes frightened and tries to go out from the other side of the store. Coming out, she sees Axel, and when they come out they see a box. There was a heart inside it. No doubt it was the heart of that worker. And it was written on the wall with blood, "Be mine forever." It means this worker had said this to Axel. Sarah was frightened. She was taken to the hospital. There was Sarah's son and her maid at her home. The murderer goes there and kills Sarah's maid. When the police arrive there, the murderer doesn't spare the police. After knowing all this, Tom calls Sarah. He asks her that, "Will you come with me if I will come to take you?" While having trust in me, we were good friends at a time. Sarah says, "Yes, I remember. I don't hate you. Because of Axel, my behavior was rude. I still like you and trust you." And she goes with Tom. But when Axel goes to the hospital, he comes to know that Sarah is not there. He becomes furious. A nurse tells Axel that she has gone with Tom. Axel calls his wife and asks her that, "Are you with Tom?" Sarah says, "Yes, I am with Tom. Do you have any issues?" Axel says that, "Why don't you understand that Tom is not a good human? He has gone mad and he lived in mental asylum for 7 years. He can do anything anytime. Maybe he takes you to do your murder. These all murders are done by him. Tom is the real murderer." When Tom hears this, he says to Sarah to stay calm. "I told you to trust me. Actually, your husband is not okay. He is always strict with you. Maybe to control you he is fearing you." Sarah says, "Keep quiet, both of you. I couldn't understand that who is telling truth and who is lying. Stop the car right now." But Tom couldn't stop the car. Sarah comes in anger and she turns the steering. So the car collapses with the tree. While running, Sarah reaches the forest. There was the cabin of Axel in that forest. When she goes inside, she sees many boxes there. There was written, "Be mine forever" on them. That has also written with the blood on the wall. She thinks that Axel is behind all this. She immediately goes to that coal mine and Axel also comes there. Being scared, Sarah takes his gun and points him. She says him to stay away and she says that, "I knew that you are the real murderer." Axel says that, "No, Sarah, how will I make you understand that Tom is tricking us?" Sarah says to him to tell her what to do. Meanwhile, Tom comes there. Axel asks his wife Sarah to shoot Tom. "I am saying shoot him. He is a psycho killer and takes our lives at any time." Tom says to Sarah that her husband is lying. How easily. Look, how many boxes were in his cabin and there was written on "Then be mine forever." That was also written on the wall with blood. Sarah says, "Wait a minute, who told you that it was written on the wall? You were not there at that time. How do you know about those boxes in the cabin and what was written on them?" Now she believes that Tom is the real murderer, because Sarah didn't tell him anything. Sarah instantly points a gun at Tom. Tom says that, "I am not the real murderer. The real murderer is behind you. Look behind you," and shoots him. But when Sarah and Axel look behind, there was none. They were thinking that Tom is saying to look back because he wants to attack us. But it was not that. Actually, Tom sees visions. He feels hallucinations. He was insane because of the incident that had happened with him 10 years before. In fact, he wants to take revenge on all of them who didn't save him on that day. He disappeared the murderer's body from there, so that they will think that he has run from there. And when a worker was killed in the mine, he locked himself at a place. Everyone will think that he was locked, but he was doing all these murders just for the sake of revenge. Telling all this, Tom moves towards Axel to attack him. He makes him injured. Axel asks his wife Sarah to shoot at Tom. "Take my rifle," and while holding it, Sarah fires at Tom. Although the bullet is aimed at him, he will not be easily killed. When the bullet shoots the cylinder, gas spreads there, and there was a huge blast. Everything was set on fire. and Tom was finally murdered in this location. Axel and Sarah were rescued from that mine. They were taken to the hotel. But in the last scene of the movie, we see that Tom was so stubborn he is still not dead. He changes his getup and comes out of the mine. None knows that Tom was murderer, or he is still alive. Don't know what will